Welcome to Policy Precision, an unbiased dive into executive orders. I'm Ethan Caldwell, and I'm here to detail their impacts.
And I'm Nora Harper, here to show their human side. Today, we're looking at a brand new executive order, one that puts a huge spotlight on South Africa. That's right, we're talking about Executive Order 1424, signed on February 7, 2025. It is a really dramatic shift in policy, so we're going to unpack what it says, why it was enacted, and the really deep historical context behind it all. Okay, let's dive into this.
The order opens with some incredibly strong language. Right from the get-go, it sets a dramatic tone, talking about a shocking disregard of its citizens' rights. Wow, that's powerful wording, you know? It's not the kind of language you typically see in these documents. It immediately makes you ask, what on earth is happening that would lead the White House to use a phrase like shocking disregard? What's the story here?
Well, to find that answer, we just have to look at the order's purpose section. It actually lays out two very distinct justifications for this major policy shift.
So the first reason cited is internal. It centers on human rights, specifically this new land expropriation law. The order claims it targets a specific ethnic minority, the Afrikaners, to seize their agricultural property without paying for it.
And the second justification? It's all geopolitical. It frames South Africa's recent foreign policy actions as a national security threat to the United States and its allies.
So, this is the crucial point. The order builds its case on two pillars, what it calls a violation of domestic human rights on one hand and a direct challenge to U.S. foreign policy on the other.
And those justifications, they lead to some very concrete and honestly, potentially life-altering policy changes.
Exactly. Section 2 of the order outlines two direct actions the U.S. is going to take. So let's see how this justification turns into action.
Okay, first, a complete halt to all U.S. foreign aid and assistance. And second, a new directive to prioritize humanitarian relief and refugee resettlement, but specifically for Afrikaners. And this is where you really see the human side of policy, right? What does cutting off aid actually mean for the average person living there? And what does prioritizing one group of refugees mean for all the others? To even begin to understand that, we need some context.
Absolutely. Because the issues of land and inequality in South Africa, they didn't just pop up with the 2024 law. They are so deeply rooted in the country's painful and complicated history. So let's take a look at the numbers. They really help paint the picture.
Okay, so according to the 2022 census, the country's population is overwhelmingly Black African, over 81%. The white population, which includes most Afrikaners, makes up about 7.3%. Now, here's what's so fascinating. What's really key is how these demographics compare to the distribution of land. This gets right to the heart of the tensions we're talking about.
And the disparity is it's stark. While making up over 80% of the population, Black South Africans own just 4% of the land. Meanwhile, white South Africans, at just over 7% of the population, control 75% of all privately owned land.
This didn't happen by accident. This inequality is a direct legacy of the apartheid system, which only ended in 1994. The land reform debate has been absolutely central to South Africa's post-apartheid identity ever since.
And this isn't just about land. If you look at the Gini coefficient, which is a standard measure of income inequality, it ranks South Africa as one of the most unequal societies on the entire planet.
So when we look at this executive order, we see a policy that touches on this incredibly complex and really painful history, which raises a pretty fundamental question about its primary motivation. Remember, the order explicitly ties its actions to both the internal land issue and South Africa's external foreign policy.
And that's the crucial point. It's the dual nature of the argument. It's framed as a defense of a minority group's rights, but it's also framed as a punitive measure for foreign policy decisions the U.S. doesn't agree with, which leaves us with a final and, I think, a really thought-provoking question about how we should interpret this action.
Is this a measure truly designed to protect a vulnerable population, or is it a tool to pressure a nation on the global stage? Thanks so much for joining our breakdown here on Policy Precision.